Well, good morning everybody from a very windy state of Maryland. We've got a couple days of pretty high wind gusts going on here up and down the East Coast. I'm sure today they're calling for, I think, 35 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts, and tomorrow it's supposed to be in the mid 20s to near 30. So the tree service is not working today, obviously, because of the high wind situation. Makes a very dangerous situation for the guys when the wind's blowing like this. So a little bit of a maintenance day for them today. So I am here in the wood yard, and today I'm going to talk to you about stacking wood in IBC totes. Now there's a lot of videos out there about stacking your wood in these totes and how to cut them and what the best options are. And once again, like we talk about all the time, I think when it comes to cutting these IBC totes or not cutting them, it really depends on you and your own personal situation. So I'm going to talk to you today. I've got a new connection for IBC totes. I'm going to talk about that as well, and talk about how I'm going to go about setting myself up for success come next year. So stick around. Now I'm going to do my best to keep you all out of the wind noise today, but like I said, I've got a new connection for these totes, and I've got a couple loads of them here on the trailers that I've got to get unloaded today. So this looks like it might work out for me. Hopefully it'll be good for a little while anyway, where I can acquire some more totes. But I have cut these totes in many different ways, and I'll show you a couple examples of what I do, why I do it, what's good about it, what's not good about it. But the main way that I've been doing it is just like this. Cutting out the front but leaving the bottom section there. That gives a little bit more support, because what happens is, and you can kind of see it on this first one right here, the top of it starts to spread out. Now all these totes come with the cross braces on the top of them when they're new, before you take the bladders out. And once you're done stacking, I've seen some guys put the cross braces across the top of them to help support that from spreading. But I try to stack up above the top, and actually those are a little low. They need to come up a few inches, because if you try to get a third of a cord in these totes, you got to go higher than the top of the cage. And once you go higher, you can't put that cross brace in. Now, the reason why I do it this way is because when it comes time to dump, I can just strap the back of the cage to the forks on the skid loader and dump it, and it all comes right out. And I know that works because I've done it. Show you some footage here of me doing that and how well it works. Now let me show you a couple other things that I've tried before that I think does not work quite as well, and another tote that I cut for a completely different purpose. So here's an example of one of my older totes that I had when I first started using them, and what I did to this was I cut the entire front out of it, even the corners that wrap around on each side. I cut that completely out and made it completely wide open on the front. You can see here how wide this thing has bent out and stretched out, and this one wasn't on a metal skid, it was on just a wooden pallet. So that pallet has since started to rot away. But the good thing about it is I can take the bolts out of the four corners of the bottom of this cage and put it on a new pallet so that I can continue to use it. But cutting the complete front of this out does not work as well at all. It pretty much, as soon as I stacked the wood in it, it started to bend itself outward. So I stopped doing that, and like I said, just like this one here, I leave the bottom section in to try to help keep it from bending out, and it still dumps fairly well. You might have a couple pieces left in the bottom there after you dump, but it's easy enough to toss those in by hand. Let me show you another example of something I use for Taylor. So here we are over at the axis, and I've been tearing into this old dead ash that I brought in I think last week. This is all going to be bundle wood. It's been down for a couple years. This pile here, you can see I've been having to get rid of some of it because there's a little bit of punk on the outside edges of a few of these logs. So we're working around those, and that's something that the axis is absolutely phenomenal at. You got really good wood in the middle of a log. Show you an example over here maybe. So like this round here, you can see the outside edges are starting to get a little punk. And this is an oak round here, but the ash is the same way. Here we go. See the outside edge of this ash starting to get a little punky. And it's still good to burn. Like, I'll keep it for myself at home, but this is not something I would sell. But all this from here into the center is all really good, dry, still good wood that is sellable. So the Axis does a phenomenal job with that single wedge of working yourself around those bad spots and keeping the good spots. So as I'm making this bundle wood and it's coming off the conveyor of the Axis here into this tote to be moved over to the area where Taylor makes our bundles, you can see what I do here is I just cut out the first section. I think a couple of them might have went down to the second section. And what that enables me to do is still pile the tote full with loosely thrown in firewood, but it also enables Taylor to be able to reach in to get the wood when the crate starts getting a little low or close to running out. That way she doesn't need to either flip the tote on its side or climb up and over and take a chance on hurting herself. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind when you cut these totes is that when you do cut them, you create sharp edges. Now, I've seen people wrap tape around them, I've seen people put pipe insulation around them and wire tie it on. All kinds of different things. I think Sam's doing stuff, I think he even tried using some of that plastic dip paint and sprayed it on there just to knock that edge down. I don't do that. It just, in my opinion, it takes too much time. The foam insulation doesn't hold up. The tape doesn't hold up. So I just say, be careful when you're working around the front of the totes. But that is a couple different ways that I cut my totes and the reason why I do it that way. So here's another method for you to consider if you're thinking about going to Ibc Totes, and this is one that I absolutely do not like. You can see what we did here was cut the entire front out, but we left the top crossbar obviously to prevent it from spreading out in the top. But what that does is when you're stacking wood, you either have to bend down and under it to get in to stack that back row, or reach up and over the top and drop the wood down. It does prevent the tote from spreading out at the top, but the bending over and underneath that bar, once you bounce your head off the top of that a couple times, or you scrape the back of your neck on these cutoff points, you'll learn to dislike that fairly quickly. At least that's my experience. So you can see I've tried a lot of different things here. I think the Ibc totes make absolutely great, a great way to stack your firewood and be able to move it around. That's what's so great about these. If you have a piece of equipment that can move them, it's mobile. It makes it so much easier to load, but you do need to kind of play with things to see what's going to work best for you and what you like best. I don't think there is a perfect solution. I think you figure out what works good for you and go with that. So one more thing before we go here, I want to talk about some of the comments that I've been receiving about using these totes to dump into my trailers. So some of you have suggested, Brad, don't cut your totes at all. Just leave them the way they come, take the bladders out, and just get yourself a set of rotating pallet forks. Well, that would be a fantastic option if there weren't a couple hurdles in the way. Obviously, one hurdle is the cost. It's another expense. But the second hurdle for me is the machine that I have. Now, when I load these totes up and I stack them and I get just about a third of a cord in these totes and I move them around with this machine, when they are green, especially when it's oak, it's just about at the capacity for that machine. I feel that the rear end of it get a little light, and when I go to dump it in the trailer and I'm lifting it high up above the sides of the trailer, it's about all it wants. So if you add a set of rotating pallet forks, you add weight to the front of the machine, and you also extend your load out further towards the front, which is going to give you even less counterweight. So I don't think my particular machine is going to handle a set of rotating pallet forks. So that option is out for me. So I think as far as these totes down here go on the trailers, when they come off, I'm going to continue to cut them the way I've been cutting them, leaving the bottom section in there. Just like these over here that we did in last week's video. We'll leave that bottom piece in, cut the top out, and see how much time we can get out of them. But that seems to be the best option for me. Drop some comments down below and tell me what works best for you. How much time you get out of them if you cut them the way that I'm going to continue to cut them, and you know, any pointers you might have. So I'm just sharing my experiences. I know there's, like I said at the beginning, there's a whole lot of videos on YouTube about using Ibc Totes for firewood, and I've watched many of them myself. But I'm just sharing my experiences with you, and hopefully it'll help somebody or give somebody an idea or tell somebody what they don't want to do. So that's it for this week. I know it's a short video, but I'm going to get these totes unloaded off these trailers, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Have a great week, everybody.